Thank you for joining me for the broadcast today. I'm going to continue with my series on marriage matters. And today I'm going to look at a subject that can be pretty devastating to marriage relationships or any kind of relationships, actually. And that's the silent treatment. And of course, I'm sure that many of us who have been married have experienced the silent treatment over the years at one time or another. But hopefully, we've grown out of that and we've learned to really communicate with our spouse and don't resort to that sort of a thing to try to punish them or for them to actually punish us either. But that we can learn to resolve those because it's no fun being isolated emotionally from our spouse or for either anybody else, for that matter, in our circle of friends and social circles. So I'm going to look at several principles regarding this and what causes that kind of an emotional isolation and what we call a silent treatment. And then I'm also going to provide some recommendations and suggestions on how you can break that cycle and get back in restoration. So the first thing is that we need to realize is that whenever there's a silent treatment going on, the only way that can happen is number one, there's some unforgiveness. You or your spouse has done something that has upset you or it upset your spouse. And rather than trying to talk your way through that and trying to explain and trying to work out the differences in that circumstance, you just give the silent treatment and you're not going to talk about it. It may go on for a day, may go on for several days. So we've talked with couples that have come before us for counsel, and there's been some who've not talked to each other for a week. I can't imagine living like that because that is just simply that is the full emotional isolation that comes through unforgiveness. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. We're going to be looking at some notes that I have here in front of me on my iPad. So I'll be looking down at that at times and reading those for us. But emotional abandonment is unforgiveness taken to its extreme conclusion. You know, if we really want to hurt our spouse, we just don't talk to them. We just isolate them emotionally. And because that is such a harsh and unwarranted position to put them in, it's just something that we need to address and we need to come out of. So I want to just say this too, that when we feel that our spouse has hurt us and we refuse to forgive them, we look for ways to protect ourselves from being hurt again in the future. That's one of the reasons we shut down. We figure that if I don't talk to you, and I'm not going to let you hurt me because I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to express myself to you. And if we shut them down that way through that silent treatment, what we're really doing is we're trying to shut them out emotionally. And if we shut them out emotionally, what we're really doing is we're putting up a wall for our own emotions so we don't get hurt any further, because we'll get hurt anymore. But anytime we have unforgiveness, that unforgiveness always leads to isolation. Now, that isolation is not limited just to spouses, husbands and wives. If you have people in your circle of friends or family, extended family, for instance, that you have unforgiven, what you've really done is you've isolated them from input in your life and you've isolated yourself from inputting in their lives. And what that does is it's probably one of the most cruelest emotional affronts that we can put against another person. Just simply shut them off. Because you see, that's what unforgiveness does. If I have unforgiveness toward you, I don't want to be with you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I don't want you to talk to me. I'm just not interested. But what does it mean to forgive? A lot of people think that forgiveness means forgetting. Not necessarily. What forgiveness means is that I release you from your responsibility to honor me, to love me, to appreciate me, to value me. And I release you from that responsibility. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get my validation from the Lord. I'm not going to look to you for my validation. I'm going to release you from that responsibility. When we do that, we can start healing. Because we're not holding them responsible anymore for what they have, of how they have offended us, And because of that, we don't necessarily mean we have to be friends, but we have at least released our own emotions to where we're no longer in bondage to what they have done to us. So the very first thing that you want to do or want to recognize as far as if the silent treatment is working is because there's been unforgiveness. So deal with that unforgiveness. Number two, why is there a silent treatment? Is because of a callous treatment. Remember, your spouse is God's gift to you, and they deserve to be treated as something precious and special. I've often said to couples who've come before us, you know, the way you treat your wife, said to the husband, or to the wife, the way you've treated your husband, you got to recognize that they are a child of God. They're God's son or God's daughter. And if you do not value them, if you do not appreciate them, if you do not respect them the way you should as an individual, you need to start working on your defense when you stand before God and you give an account for your life. And God says, why did you treat my daughter, or why did you treat my son that way? Because that's really what's happening. You know, marriage is temporary. When we are in heaven, we don't marry or give it in marriage, but we're like the angels, the scripture says. So our relationship with God is eternal. Our marriage relationships are temporary. So however you treat your spouse in your marriage and how you deal with her spiritual and emotional well-being, that is going to have eternal consequences. And so you need to really understand that, and you need to come into the place where you don't give each other callous treatment. You're not careless with your way you treat your spouse, because if you're careless with the way you treat your spouse, it's going to get old very quickly. In our relationships, we need to have love, honor, respect for each other, and validate each other and help each other grow as a person, as a well-being. Very, 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 very important. Number three, silent treatments result because there's a lack of effort in us trying to work through circumstances and situations that might be troublesome to us. That usually happens when we start to take our spouse for granted, and we lead them or cause them to think that they're not as important in our lives anymore. Every one of us needs to be validated in some form. And so when we start taking each other for granted, we're basically minimizing the value in ourselves for them, and they feel that. And so as that compounds and continues, it causes a gradual rift and a breach in the closeness of our relationship. And as a result of that, it's fairly easy then to enter into a silent treatment when there's something else comes up and you're just not really all that happy with each other. And rather than trying to work through it and discuss it and come to a solution that's amiable for each of you, you just kind of shut down and don't want to deal with it. And so that is something that we really need to be aware of, because sometimes, as I said, the problem is actually less obvious than what the forgiveness is all about. So I'm not saying this really. I kind of not getting across real here. I don't feel like getting across really well here, but I'm gonna just summarize this in saying this: when we start taking our spouse for granted, when we do that, we lead them to believe that their value to us has depreciated, and because of that, they will start to withdraw. That's really the bottom line. Number four, and the next reason why people have enter into a silent treatment with each other is because when we continually are busy with our lives, our hobbies, our children, or whatever, and we don't really provide for couple times, date nights, or whatever, we're getting ourselves where our relationship becomes strained, and where it's very easy then just to give the silent treatment and say, you know what, I'll just live my life, you live your life, I'll do my thing, you do your thing. And really what happens there is a marriage starts getting into some real trouble. You need to take time. You need to make time for date nights. You need to make time to do things together. You need to make time to show love and appreciation for each other, especially if you still have children at home. You need to demonstrate what love looks like. You need to demonstrate what forgiveness looks like. You need to demonstrate what communication looks like, because as they grow up, they're going to be imitating what they have learned in their formative years. I have often said to couples, when your children grow up, will they want a marriage like you and your husband or you and your wife demonstrated to them? Or will they say, no way, Jose, I don't want any part of getting married. I don't want any part of a relationship like I've been raised with. It's a little bit like I often have said to couples when they bring babies to me for dedication. One of the things I challenge them with is I tell them, I want you to raise this child the way you wish you would have been raised. And so we need to take time and to make time for each other. You're not going to build or establish or really even solidify or maintain a relationship without having time together. Number 5, the fear of talking through issues is another reason why that couples experience the silent treatment. Emotional detachment does not just happen out of the blue, but there's always something behind it. You see, if we have an inability or afraid to talk through issues in our relationships, then that kind of a disconnect will be a likely result. Because here's the thing. If we never resolve something, what will happen is those unresolved issues will begin compounding and compounding and compounding. If we just shove things under the rug, the first thing you know, you're going to have a lump under that rug that you're going to be tripping over. You need to resolve issues as they come up. And this is something that's learned. And again, if you've been watching this series, I had some other broadcasts on disarming emotional conflicts, learning to be a better communicator, learning how to listen, learning how to work through those areas. And I want you to understand that it is important to have communication. Too many couples just kind of bypass each other rather than really connecting. If you're going to resolve issues, you need to connect. You need to talk to. You need to express yourself. You need to be able to articulate and to begin to really address the issues that are at hand, rather than just being quiet about it, gradually let that quietness build up, or let that unresolved issue build up until finally, boom, there's an explosion, and you say things you regret and do things you regret, and it just starts deteriorating in your relationship, and the first thing you know, you're in real trouble. So take time. Don't be afraid of talking through your issues. You need to feel safe, of course, because that's another issue that I have addressed already in this series, but we often ask couples if they feel safe with each other. I don't mean that means that you are afraid you're going to get beat up when you get home, but what I'm saying is, do you feel like you can just express and share your needs, your cares, your emotional expectations without being put down or just kind of sloughed off or whatever? If you can do that, you have a safe environment. If you can't do that, you don't have a safe environment. That's going to cause you to always be on guard, always be careful what's being said or what you'll say, how are you going to respond. If I say this, how will you respond? How are you going to react? And the first thing you know, you're in a situation where you're not resolving issues at all. Talk through those. Learn to talk through those. Number 6 is living in denial. Living in denial doesn't fix things. It only causes the marriage to deteriorate to the point where the spouses just do not feel close anymore. I've often said that denial is not just the river in Egypt. When we deny that there's a problem and we just kind of brush it off and we won't face it and won't deal with it, we're actually living in a place where it's not reality. It's not truthful. It's not anywhere as close to being what God calls for as a marriage, scripturally speaking. We might still have a legal contract, but we don't really have a marriage, because a marriage is give and take. A marriage is a commitment from two people with 100% commitment to each other. A marriage is honoring each other. Marriage is respecting each other. Marriage is working through issues so we can grow together. Marriage is being concerned for your partner's well-being and welfare, and caring for that, and also getting that same back in return. That's what makes a marriage. That's what causes people to stay together, be committed together, and to really move forward with with lifelong relationships. It's so necessary. We cannot live in denial and have a meaningful relationship. It's just not going to happen. And so we have to talk to each other, and we need to be able to make the changes necessary in our attitude toward each other in order for us to have resolution in these areas. So this is the 6 areas I want to talk about because, as I said, living in denial will never fix anything. All it's going to do is going to cause you to be feeling further and further distant, and as a result of that, you're more easily subject to becoming a victim of the silent treatment or giving it to your spouse. What I'm going to do now is change gears a little bit, and I'm going to give you some principles as how you can work through that emotional distance when you find that you're having it in your marriage relationship. The first step in dealing with emotional abandonment is to identify the root cause and begin to deal with it. Don't settle for just living in isolation. As I said, living in isolation is not a marriage. Living in isolation, you might as well be single, living on your own, being a bachelor or bachelorette. Being isolated in your own marriage under their own same roof is pretty juvenile. It's not adult at all. It's the way juveniles deal with it. It's the way school children do when they have some kind of a situation that happens at school. They shut each other out. You're not called to do that. You're called to live and let live. You're called to work through, as an adult, work through circumstances where there are differences. Because I can tell you this, differences are going to happen. Differences of opinion are going to happen. There are going to be times where you're not going to look at the things the same way. But as you work through those, you can strengthen that relationship and you can begin to build something more solid so that you really have something that you can work with, something that you can pass on to your children, something that your children are going to look to and they're going to be respectful of. And they're going to say, I want to have a marriage. I want to have a relationship just like mom and dad had. So it's very, very important to do this. So the first thing you want to do as you want to start working through this distance is to agree to talk. Because at some point, you will need to agree to talk about the problems that exist between you. If you don't talk about it, you're never going to resolve it. You have to come into the place where you're willing to take responsibility and begin to talk about it, make a mutual commitment that you're going to resolve this thing. You're going to resolve this issue so that you can go on together and you can build upon the past. Because as I've said in previous broadcasts, that you can turn conflicts into growth opportunities if you really know how. If you deal with the issues at hand rather than let them compound and get larger, you can actually cause them to be stepping stones where you can actually build and strengthen your relationship. Now, number 2 in this is to be prepared. What do I mean by being prepared? Before you have the talk where you're going to discuss the issue at hand, before you have that talk, you both need to think through the unresolved issues that you will be discussing. The one thing you don't want to do is try to spring on your spouse something that they have no idea where you're coming from, and you're going to expect them to resolve the issue. You're not going to resolve it. What's going to happen is your spouse is going to throw up a wall. They're going to throw up resistance. They're going to back off. You might do a lot of talking. They won't be listening. They will be protecting themselves, keeping themselves in a safe emotional space. And when they do that, the silent treatment remains. So be prepared. Talk about it. Prepare what you're going to talk. Take some time. Okay, tomorrow night or next week, whatever. We need to really discuss this. We need to bring a resolution to this conflict, this difference of opinion, so we can continue on together as adults, as husbands and wives that love each other, that respect each other. And this is very, very, very important. This is number 2. Number 3, when you're discussing things like this, you need to be direct, but you need to be gentle. Neither of you has anything to gain by holding back on your feelings. As I said, you need to have a safe environment to really allow yourself to be vulnerable in your feelings and you're expressing yourselves. And if you don't have that safe environment, then you need to work through and come to the place where you can feel safe. Because if you don't feel safe, you will never reveal your true emotional state. You never will reveal your true emotional thoughts or what you expect to accomplish, even if this issue is resolved. And so you need to be direct. Don't be beating around the bush about what needs to be discussed. Don't be beating around the bush about what needs to be what needs to be really addressed. Be direct, but at the same time, be gentle. Remember that unresolved issues lie at the heart of emotional attachment, and so you have to get that issue resolved if you want to be reattached emotionally. Has to be done. There's no other way around it. So don't spring it on each other, but be prepared. Think it through. Pray about it. Ask the Lord to show you how can I approach this in such a way that's going to bring a meaningful resolution to our difference or the conflict that's here. Number 4, begin to meet unmet needs. Often a spouse pulls back from the relationship because they feel that their needs are not being met. A healthy marriage relationship demands that both partners actively work to discern the needs of their spouse and work to meet those needs. Very, very important. Seek to understand your spouse's needs and ask yourself how you can start to better express love by meeting those needs. Very important. What fills our love tank does not necessarily fill our spouse's love tank. And it's important for us to really understand what fills our spouse's love tank. Perhaps you're aware of what's generally been come to known as the five love languages. And those 5 love languages are gifts, receiving gifts, touch, quality time, acts of service, and the 5th one I want to say is I'm gonna try again, see if I can get to it this time. It's gifts, acts of service, quality time. Oh, I'm so sorry. I cannot, for some reason, I always seem to forget that. There's a one on oh yeah, I'm just going to have to leave it. I'm sorry. I hope you know those things because I am messing this up big time. I'm so sorry about that. But our spouse's love language is not necessarily the same as ours, and so we need to learn what that is, and we need to help them to have that love tank filled up. All right, number 5 is to deal with your own stuff. You know, it's very easy for us just to think that all of our problems and our issues are with our spouse, but that's never the case. Each one of us has our own issues. I've often said over the years that the reason people pass the buck is because they don't want any change. But you see, what we really need to do is we need to ask ourselves a question, a tough question at times, and that question is this: what have I done to drive my spouse away? Secondly, what can I do to fix that? What needs to change within me that's going to cause her or him to want to spend time with me, to want to have our relationship reestablished and corrected to where we can build and continue going forward? That sometimes is not just the most easy question to ask. But when you look in the mirror, you got to realize, you know what? There's issues that you need to deal with and not try to put everything on your spouse to think that she's the only one that has things that she needs to deal with and correct. Don't try to spend so much time trying to change your spouse and that you don't take any time to change yourself. Because every one of us needs to have changes. Every one of us have things that we need to work through and to deal with. And so this is something that's very, very important that we learn to actually face ourselves realistically and truthfully, and say, what am I doing? What am I contributing to this situation? What am I contributing to either the issue that's causing the issue, or what am I contributing to resolve it? So deal with your own stuff. Number 6 is to intentionally re-engage. If you're to reestablish your emotional connection, it won't happen by accident and it won't happen overnight. You have to make deliberate choices to re-engage. Deliberate choices. It's not just going to happen. Your relationship did not get strained overnight. It did not get strained to where you have the silent treatment, but it got strained over a period of time because issues were not resolved. And because those issues were not resolved, the distance started and getting wider. And as a result of that, the disconnect took place. The disconnect happened. You have to make a deliberate choice to intentionally re-engage. Plan a few dates together. Spend time together. Enjoy. Find out what each other enjoys, and encourage each other in those. Take time to re-enter each other's lives. Set some times in your schedule. Make some priorities in your schedule. Those of you that have young children, children take a lot of time, but get some babysitters once in a while. Go on a date. Have some time together. Enjoy each other. It's one of the greatest blessings in a marriage is being able to just spend time together and enjoy each other for who we are. Very important. Take the time to make make that reconnection to re-engage. You'll never, ever strengthen your marriage. You'll never get out of this potential silent treatment circumstances if you don't do that. Now, number 7 is you act kindly. You must act kindly toward your spouse. Small gestures of warmth, acts of kindness, just a love tap here and there, a peck on the cheek, whatever. Just let them know that you appreciate them. Let them know how much you appreciate that meal that was prepared for you, or how much you appreciate just something that was brought in, or a gift, or just some surprise that you had. But to act kindly toward each other, appreciate and love each other. And as you do that, it goes a long way to rekindle what's going there. Do this from the heart with a real commitment to make the necessary changes. Act kindly. Don't be harsh. Life is too short to live in a harsh world. The world outside of us and around us outside of the home is harsh enough. Don't bring that harshness into the home. Act kindly toward each other. Appreciate, love, respect, honor each other. Cherish one another. Because remember this, as Christians, as believers, we will give an account to Father God as to how we have treated our spouse, which is really one of his children. And so you need to really act kindly on that. And number 8, love unconditionally. You need to step out of the insult for insult cycle and respond differently. You need to let go of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. No, that's not going to help anything. That's not going to establish anything. All that's going to do is going to continue to fuel the flames of whatever issues that are there. Lay it aside. Come on. You're an adult. If you weren't an adult, you wouldn't be married. And so if you're married and you're an adult, act like it. Respect your spouse. Love her unconditionally. Demonstrate that love. Give her a love tap. When's the last time you just held your spouse, your wife, and said, I love you? When's the last time you told your husband how much you appreciate how he provides for the family? You might both be working. You might both have employment. You might both have jobs. That's great. Compliment each other. Find out how each other's day's going. So that you can, as you do that, you can encourage that communication between you, because you're breaking down that cycle that is determined to keep you separated and emotionally distanced. Break that down. Number 9, allow God to work. And this is an important one as well. You need to just simply ask the Lord to change you. Spend more time asking him to change you than you spend asking him to change your spouse. Because your spouse is actually going to change more as she sees the change in you. How well I remember when I gave my life to the Lord many years ago, over 50 years ago. I gave my life to the Lord, and at first Marty was she didn't think it was going to last, because I had a very dramatic conversion experience, and a lot of things changed very dramatically overnight, and she was taken aback by that, and she really questioned whether it was going to be real or not. But as a few weeks went on, and she saw that she couldn't push my buttons anymore, and I wasn't responding anymore to her button pushing, so to speak. When I wasn't responding anymore, she was convicted, and she too turned her heart to the Lord. So it wasn't me preaching at her. It wasn't me doing anything. It's a matter of me saying, God, change me. God, bring me into the place where I can be the man, the person that you've wanted me to be. And in doing that, as God did that in me, he did that in Marty as well. And as a result of that, God began to rebuild something. If you want to read more about or know more about that conversion experience and the dramatic experiences that we had, get a hold of my autobiography, Faith and Frontiers. Find it most anywhere books are sold, online or even on, if you're local, you can find it in a local bookstore right here in town. But the experience was dramatic, and God was able to do things that we couldn't have done ourselves. So this is the last thing: is ask the Lord to help you change, because He doesn't want you living in that kind of isolation. You shouldn't want to live in that kind of isolation either. So if you've experienced the silent treatment, I hope that these some of these principles that I've given you and suggestions I've given you have been helpful. I'd love to hear from you. When if these messages are help to you, right down below there's a place where you can comment on it. Tell me about it. Send me a note and just say, I really appreciate the series that you're doing. It's going to be a few more in this series before we go on to something else. And so I really would like to hear from you. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope these things have been a blessing to you. I hope they've been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. God bless. Have a wonderful day.